you already had the pasture, so I'm assuming there was some infrastructure, and so like the cow like hasn't gotten out yet, or what?
No, the cow got out. Everything has gotten out at some point. So right now we have the cow, we have the steer. We wound up getting a miniature donkey that came with a companion goat because one of our kids really wanted this donkey, and we said, okay, sure, when that happens. Yeah. And so they told us that she needed to have this goat with her or else she would be too lonely. So we have this goat, it's just a fainting goat. We wound up with that. We got a bunch of chickens. Like we have 20 hens now and a rooster. And then we wound up getting a breeding pair of pigs. And then we got, somehow, our neighbor also brought us another goat. So now we've got the 2 goats. All
Wow.
the animals. Yeah. This is all like so fast for us. And we just keep looking around like, I can't believe we're doing this. But sure, what the heck? They're all eating grass. It's pretty cool. But all the animals have gotten out.
This is the Farm Hop Life Podcast, a traveling homestead family. I'm Matt DeRosier. On the Farm Hop Life Podcast, we learn what it takes to grow your own food from everyday people. Could be a college student, grows tomatoes and salad greens on their apartment patio, a former VP of marketing for Del Taco now raising cattle in Montana, or someone who hasn't had a homestead in over 10 years. This show is aimed at teaching you what it takes to make homesteading work for you, that we all make mistakes, we all have bad days, but we can reach out and help one another thrive, and giving you the confidence needed to go feed yourself.
Well, how did you get started with traveling from farm to farm?
So, trying to start from the ground up on this place. We built this house, just as bare land. We've been here 3 years now, and trying to get a homestead up off the ground is a lot of work. And then all the other things like in and around the house. And so I was thinking, man, if I had an extra pair of hands here, just think about how much more I could get done. And then I was thinking, well, then why couldn't I be that person for somebody else? And so it was going to be this whole thing. I put in my 1-year notice at work, and we should have, it's a long story, should have been gone like April 1st of this year. But one thing led to another, and I ended up taking a new job in December of last year. Like it was too good to pass up. Like my wife and I talked about it, we prayed about it, and then it was something that we just had to table the whole live in a travel trailer and travel around the country. As much as that's what we wanted to do, I had to take this job for a couple other reasons.
Right.
Well, mainly financially.
Yeah, that's an important reason.
Yeah. It would have been a short trip. I think we were kind of putting too many things off that you just can't really put off. And so we kind of had to table the farm hopping, the true goal of like actually physically being there, physically helping. But we're still doing the interviews. Last Saturday, I went to a farm and helped out for an hour or so. Got an interview, got a tour, and so that content will be coming out soon. So I'm helping, just not as much and a lot more local. So that's
That's good too.
how it's doing in that.
I think there's a lot to be said for starting locally.
Yeah. But yeah, so you're in Oklahoma, is that right?
That's correct.
Or as your bio says, Oklahoma.
That's right. Formerly Florida. And
Okay, interesting. Okay, when did you move?
So we got here to Oklahoma in June of 22.
Nice. Okay, so
Almost a year now.
man, congratulations on the move. It seems like you went opposite. Everybody's going into Florida, and you're like, I'm leaving. Forget that.
Yeah. Well,
How'd that work?
it's definitely getting pretty crowded down there. But my husband was from Oklahoma. He was active duty military, and we were coming to the end of his time in the military. He had done almost 25 years, and we were looking around at everything that was going on in the world around 2020, 2021. And we basically kind of went from looking at our little house in the suburbs that we thought that we were going to die in and realized we need to kind of get out of here. We really need to get someplace a little further away from the cities and closer to family. And Oklahoma it was.
Nice. What branch of the military?
Navy.
Navy. So you, how many years were you in Florida? It's kind of unusual to be able to stay in one spot for a long time, right?
Well, it is. I pretty much grew up in Florida. So that's where we met. And most of his career really was in Florida because of the job that he did in the Navy. It's very a small community, and there aren't many places that you can go with that job. Jacksonville was one of them. So that's where we were.
I see. That's kind of nice that you didn't have the traditional military experience where like, hey, we're going to move every 2 years. How's that sound?
Exactly. Yeah.
There'd be a constant state of starting over.
Exactly. And, there was always that possibility that we could go some other places. So it did limit some of the things that we did in the past. But really, as he was coming to the end of his time and we knew that hard deadline was approaching, it definitely changed our mindset about what we were willing to try.
Okay. Sorry about that. I just, who knows when the power's going to come back on. It's not worth turning on the generator right now. So I just have my hot on my phone going. So if I have crappy internet, that's why. Okay. So we were talking your husband. So he retired from the military. So did he what's he up to now? Did he take like a civilian job just for something to do, or is he doing a bunch of work at the new house? Or go ahead.
So he has a civilian job working with one of his friends from when he was a kid here, and he is doing that for long days and then coming home and helping at home. We're trying to get as many projects done at home as we go. I work part-time from home also, and I've got 5 kids. We homeschool. Everything's at home. We got a lot of stuff going on.
Wow, nice. That's kind of nice. The working from home and 5 kids. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a good amount of work, definitely.
Are your kids a little bit older, mostly younger, or kind of spread out?
They're spread out. They range. Youngest is 6, oldest is 15, almost 16.
Wow.
So they're a good range. And then we actually also have my sister and her family decided they were going to move to Oklahoma too. So they sold their place out east and came out too. So
Excellent.
a big crowd.
Are they far away or?
They're living with us. So
Oh, okay. I didn't know if that's exactly what you meant, or if they were like across the street or on the other side of town, or
yeah,
where they were. But wow.
we said, hey, come on out. Might as well. And they're with us until they can get a house built on some property that they found nearby.
Hey, that's excellent. That's kind of cool for your kids to like play with their cousins like all the time. Like these are going to be great years for them.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, they've been here since November now, and it's been wonderful.
Good. That's a lot of stress, like a lot of stress and strain on relationships. But if it's a good relationship to start with, that's a good foundation. So nice, excellent. So the homesteading, you're just getting your new systems started, I assume. So let's talk about what have you done like when you were in Florida? Talk about some of your systems there.
So Florida, despite what you might think, is really a horrible place to live in. We lived in Northeast Florida, so we kind of got the worst of both worlds. It would be horribly hot and disgusting all summer long, and summer there is like, 9 months of the year. And then you would get these raw, cold winters where it was, horrible. So there was maybe a few weeks in the spring, in the fall, that it was nice to be working outside. But it was either drought or flood, and everything rots on the vine.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So my focus in Florida was a lot of indoor gardening, container gardening, uh, passive hydroponics, aero gardens, whatever I could do to minimize the amount of sun the plants were going to get so that they wouldn't shrivel up and die, and keep the bugs off of them. Lots of
Did you say did you say arrow gardening?
Oh, yeah. Aero gardens, the little ones like they sell at the store. We did a bunch of those for
They're just like
tomatoes.
little okay. I think I know what you're talking about. There's like a little grow light.
Mhm. And a pump, and it's hydroponics. And they come in all different sizes, from little ones that sit on your countertop to the ones like we had that are, you stack them one on top of the other, and they're 6 feet tall. So,
Okay. That's a lot different than the one that I had. I can't remember. It was like some Kickstarter thingy that I had. Man, it was not very big. I think the footprint was like this. And it was something like it was like $100. And I was like, man, I don't know how like this does not scale. It was a cool
right.
little like there was like a cool little like desktop kind of grow thingy, but it was not did not scale very well.
I don't know. We had some good results with the ones that we had. A lot of cherry tomatoes and peppers and things like that. But we had a bigger setup.
Sure. Yeah, I imagine that that had a bigger footprint, that
Oh, yeah.
it wasn't gonna fit on somebody's like computer desk or like kitchen table. And yeah, it was kind of gimmicky, this one, but
Yeah. But they work well, and it was a nice intro, basically. But, like you're saying with the scale, as you're going through the little different plantings, and you have to buy all of their little parts, and we start to look at the forums of, how do you keep going with this? Is it really worth it? And then that kind of led into different methods like crap keep buckets, which is a passive hydroponic system. We started doing that to grow, just like lettuce and things like that we were going to use quickly. Had great success with those. And in fact, I really need to start those back up again. I found that was the easiest way to grow lettuce for the table.
really. So I've heard a lot about Kratky. I haven't tried it myself yet, but you basically grow the plants in like a tray and let their roots hang, and they have to like really like stretch for the water. Is that right?
Exactly. So the way
Okay.
that we did it, we had 1 gallon buckets with lids, and you cut a
Okay.
hole in the lid, put your net in like a net basket, and that's where you
Hmm.
have your seed, and you have it in rock wool or clay pellets or something like that. And your nutrient solution is just a gallon of water and a teaspoon of hydroponic fertilizer. And basically, as those roots grow into the liquid, um, they create an airspace which is super moist, and but that's how it gets its air exchange from that. But it's totally
Sure.
closed. You're not adding any water. You're not adding anything to it. You're doing it with leafy plants that basically it uses a gallon of water, and then it's done growing, and you harvest.
Hmm. What about nutrients for the water?
Yeah, so you just use, like, there's a standard hydroponic solution, but I mean it's really so basic. It's maybe a teaspoon of it, of the powder, in a gallon of
Oh,
water. So you're it's very hands off. You're setting
nice.
it
That
up,
sounds
and
pretty
just letting it
easy.
go.
So I'm assuming that
It was
was
great.
also a pretty good benefit doing it that way. Like, also, you said the plants would rot. I'm assuming you also had pretty sandy soil in Florida?
Sand, clay, just about everything. And then, of course, we're in the suburbs, so uh, the everybody's got their lawn sprayed, and
Oh,
we don't know what's
geez.
in the soil, and
Right.
it's just, plus we were in the suburbs. We had but the majority of our backyard was a pool. It's something to do for 9 months out of the
Yeah.
year with kids.
Yeah, it's Florida, of course.
Yeah. And so at one point, we're kind of looking around after all of the COVID stuff happened and looking around our yard, like maybe we could put in a garden. Maybe we could stick some chickens over here or something. And no, I think we just need a move. Just need to find someplace else.
Was that a hard decision to make, or you're like, nah, I'm pretty much over Florida. Like, I'm ready for something different.
Well, when we started seeing the riots on the news and a half an hour away, that was it. I said, all right, we're going. And of course, at that point, we still had a couple of years left for my husband in the military.
Right.
So we were just chomping at the bit, trying to figure out where do we go? How soon can we get out of here? How do we plan for this? How do you take this much time before you make that jump? But I think in the end, it was a good thing because we really didn't know what we were doing. And we had so much time to research. We had time to decide on exactly how we were going to do things, and then still had more time to realize, wow, that's not really going to work. We better try something else before we even had the outlay in time or money or anything. It forced us to really simplify our plans and be more adaptable to what was going to happen.
Sure. Were the kids pretty excited about the move? How did they handle it?
They were really excited. They were ready to come on out, and have some places to roam around. Our little neighborhood that we lived in Florida was really small. You ride your bike around it 5 minutes and then you're done.
Oh, wow. That is small.
Yeah, we're on 20 acres now, and they can roam around all day, go exploring, and they're planning their camping trip out. I don't have a pasture soon, and they're having a great time.
That's pretty neat. So, did your parents or grandparents have a garden, or did they do any like canning or food preservation, or how did you get into all this?
My mom would always have like pepper plants, but she did mostly flower gardening, and they never really did any kind of preserving, anything like that. I got into it probably around, I would say, 2008, 2009, in the midst of the financial crisis that was going on at that time. And we were kind of, I don't want to say we were paranoid, but we were kind of paranoid and looking at, how can we get more stuff on the shelves? And I started learning about canning and doing things like that. So it's been kind of a slow evolution. It hasn't been like it is now, where we're trying really hard to grow a lot of food and to have animals and things like that. But I feel like I at least was kind of set on that path. Getting a bucket of wheat, learning how to make your own bread, learning how to can things. We did not have anything like that growing up. It's very much go to the grocery store, get your food, and that's it.
Right. So back then, the way that you got into it, was it just a means of being able to provide more for your family for less, like kind of stretching your dollar, or?
Absolutely. We also at around that time we started. There was a lot of documentaries that came out about food supply issues and the things that were going into, uh, how animals were being raised and genetically modified organism, all of that stuff like that. And I felt like I would like to do things that were more natural for my kids, for our family. But I also needed to look at how do I maximize our grocery budget every month? Because it's expensive to eat clean, to eat well. We started looking at buying in bulk in order to have that kind of stretch that way. And then that segued into, well, how much could we grow? So that's when we started doing a lot of container gardening in Florida. Of course, here in Oklahoma, it's a different world as far as where your food is coming from. I mean, your food is coming from your neighbor down the road, uh, the rancher down the road. We're surrounded by cows. So it's everywhere and it's great. And I love it.
So your new place, what kind of plans, like what have you done so far, and what kind of plans do you have for the property? Like a more traditional garden? Are you gonna have like a orchard or nut, like fruit or nut trees, anything like that?
So our property is about 20 acres. About 15 acres of that is pasture, and then 5 acres around the house, partly enclosed. And then we've got like some buildings and a pond and things like that. When we first got out here, we were in the middle of a drought and a heat wave, and that lasted for months. And the property was in pretty rough shape. So a lot of our focus was just getting the house into, a basic level of functioning for us to live in and walk around in. So initially, we would have wanted to, immediately start putting in a garden, but we were really limited in what we could do with the resources we had at the time. So we basically started out with melon pits, just going out into the hard dirt in our backyard and digging 16 holes in the yard, threw a bunch of brush in them and burned them, threw a bunch of chicken carcasses and whatever leftovers we had saved over the past few weeks down in the holes, mounded them up, and planted pumpkins and squash and melons and cantaloupe, whatever. And that's what we started with. We could hand water them. They were breaking up the soil. They wound up spreading throughout the majority of that whole area that we were looking at to put in row gardens later on. And we got a really good a yield out of that, just from a pretty simple technique. Once everything died back, we let everything just kind of sit out there in the yard or rot down all winter long. And now this spring we've put in rows, but we're doing kind of a blend of row gardening and orchard and annuals all in one. We're following David the Good on YouTube, who does the survivalgardener.com website. And he kind of has this book called Grocery Row Gardening, of how you set up these kind of like food forest rows. But it's, I guess, a little bit more contained. It's not just kind of random. You're doing row gardening with trees, but then you're interspersing that with an understory of berry bushes, and then you've got your annuals that you're kind of filling in, taking them in and out as your seasons go. That's what we have right now. We just got that finished. We've got some like 25-foot long rows. We put in a ton of different fruit trees, nut trees, raspberries, blackberries, blueberries. We've got volunteer melons growing that somehow made it through over the winter in that area that are popping up everywhere. Strawberry beds, just kind of a blend. We're willing to do just about anything, and we're new to this, so we're trying out different methods just to see what works. We're in a totally new environment, so whatever is going to work in this area in our specific yard, I'm all for it. I'm not wedded to any specific method at all.
That sounds really nice, like a nice blend of everything. I like it. So, having moved there during a drought, have you considered how you're going to manage like your water, either usage or conservation or anything, to make sure things survive during the drought?
Yes. So one of the things that we looked at was Steve Solomon has a book called Water-Wise Gardening. And he talks in that book a lot about proper spacing for plants and being able to get your plants far enough away that they're not competing with each other for water. That was one of the things that when we set out our own little grocery rows that we altered from the initial recommendation, which was 3-foot paths in between our rows. We actually spread those out to 5-foot paths, just to have more space for those roots to grow and get more water if it comes down to it. We have a lot of space. So I figure we might as well plant to the space that we have. There's no reason to have a very compact garden for us,
Right.
which can be, so heavy with your water usage. And, we've got rain barrels that we're putting in everywhere around the house. We have a pond, or we have 2 ponds actually. So we look at that too. But really, for me, I look around the property and I see the trees that we have here already. Even though we live on a hill that's basically a big rock, these trees are old and they're healthy and, they've got deep roots. And that's what we're going to try to encourage, that type of growth, and just keep everything far enough away from each other that they can get the water that they need when it comes.
Sure. I haven't heard of anybody burying a chicken carcass for fertilizer before. I have heard of, I think it's either the Chinese or the Japanese, that they would bury fish carcasses in their gardens for fertilizer. That's supposed to be pretty good. So, I mean, if you use what you got, right? I mean, why not that chicken carcass? When I mean, when we're done with the chicken carcass, we throw it in the chicken run, and then at the end of the year, I guess more like beginning of the year, I pile up all the wood chips and whatever didn't get totally processed by the chickens, like that all ends up as compost. And so, yeah, you find like a chicken spine, you find a T-bone, you find ribs, you find all these things that make it into the compost pile. So, yeah, it's all part of the cycle. And then the other thing I've heard of to break up hard compacted soil is people planting daikon radish. You've heard of this? So they plant it and they just let it grow, and it's supposed to grow really big, and they just let it rot in the ground, and it's supposed to break it up pretty good.
Yeah, we've heard of that too. We threw down some cover crop seed when the melons and everything were done. We did that. I guess it was before the snow started, but nothing grew. So that was a failure in there. But I feel like the stuff that we did get down has definitely changed the soil just in the amount of time that we've been here already. When we first got here, it was like this just hard, compacted, red soil. We're already seeing better soil just from what we've already put down. We did some
That's awesome.
conditioner mineralization. We did that before we started putting our rows in. I feel like one of the big things for us is changing that mindset of putting everything in the trash and putting it on the curb. Now it's what can we get and bring onto the property? What can we get and bring into our garden area from around our property? Just to get more organic material into the areas that we're going to be planting. We have animals now, so saving up the straw and the manure all winter long, just piling it up. We tried to compost, it didn't break down, but it's going to break down eventually. We just made our rows. We mounded up straw and manure with the stuff that we had, put some soil on top of that, and that's where we planted our things that we have out there right now.
What? Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to ask, what zone are you in?
We're in 7A.
7A. Okay. And then about how much rainfall or precipitation, I guess, do you get a year?
That's a good question. We didn't get hardly any this last year. We're doing pretty well. Um, According to the Oklahoma Mesonet, we're about out of the drought to where we could go a little while without rain and we'd be okay.
Hmm.
We're in northeastern Oklahoma, which is, they call it green country, where it's not
Okay.
like the plains. It's lots of trees and hills and things like that.
Okay. Because that's what I was picturing.
Yeah. It's not your typical Oklahoma when you're looking around.
So, um, what what are a couple other things that you've tried that have worked well at your current place?
Things that have worked well. We have done garlic in raised beds. That's doing great. They are gigantic. I had no idea garlic could get so tall.
And it's not even the elephant kind, or it is?
No, they're German reds.
Hmm.
I think they are. Those are doing really well. When my sister came out, she actually brought a bunch of different types of garlic, and no, the elephant is not doing well. That was one of the
Oh,
types that she planted. Um, so it's kind of been interesting, this little experiment that we're running as far as the different varieties. We have onion sets in grow bags that are doing really, really well. I'm looking forward to seeing how those do. And the melon pits went well, but that's kind of the extent. Everything else is, we're waiting to see how it goes.
sure.
Things are sprouting. The trees are budding, and the little ones that we've planted, and I've got high hopes. But if it doesn't work, then they'll get torn out and something else will go in.
Sure. So what are a few things that haven't worked well, or I mean, I know it's a pretty quick. Again, you haven't been there that long, but I mean, you can kind of figure out quickly like what has and hasn't worked.
Well, what hasn't worked, for one, is when it comes to the animals that we got. When we moved here, we had a cat and two parakeets, and then one of the
Okay.
parakeets died.
Oh no.
So, the first thing that we got were ducks for our pond because there was getting covered with duckweed. And
Makes sense.
lovely people, yeah, some lovely people on Twitter said, you should get some ducks. I was like, that'd be great. So we did. We had 8 ducks. 6 of them are dead. We got eaten by coyotes. That didn't work out very well.
Oh no.
2 left. Yeah. We've got 2 left, though. They're a breeding pair, and they started laying some eggs recently, so hopefully that will go well. But we weren't anticipating moving so quickly on animals. We just figured, maybe some chickens or so forth, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But one of our neighbors raises cattle, and we had all of this pasture. And one day he dropped by and said, hey, would you be interested in doing some type of trade where I could put some cows on your pasture and, get a steer for the freezer or something like that. That'd be great. That's wonderful. Absolutely. Let's do it. But I didn't realize that he meant like we would get an actual steer, like a live one. So one day there's a cow in one of our enclosures and a watering trough, and there he is. That's our steer right there. So that has been a trial and error type thing because we have never had a cow in my life.
Right.
Didn't know the first thing about it. Didn't know what we were supposed to do. And it's almost like the people that we ask like for advice, it comes so naturally to them because this is their life. They've grown up around cattle and raising cattle. That they're just like, oh, you just throw them some feed every day and they'll be fine. What does that mean? How much do you give them? How do I know if they're getting enough? What if they get too fat? What if they're too thin? It's been months of trying to sort that out. Even now, I think we're still doing it wrong because our neighbor called us today to let us know that hey, you can borrow our trailer anytime you want to go take that cow up to get processed.
Like,
Your kids probably looking at exactly like
that's
getting
funny.
gigantic. I don't want to keep him as a pet or anything, but it's probably what they're all thinking at this point.
That's that's really funny. Well, have you named it? Have you named the steer?
Yes, we did, but his name is Beef.
That's good. That's pretty funny. Well, do the kids like having the cow?
They do, but they also keep talking about tenderloin, so they're definitely keeping the right perspective.
There you go. That's really funny. Yeah, that a little bit of misunderstanding uh, can make for a good story. I guess depends on who's telling it, but
That's true.
that's pretty funny. But so you already had the pasture, so I'm assuming there was some infrastructure, and so like the cow like hasn't gotten out yet, or what?
No, the cow got out. The cow got everything has gotten out at some point. So right now we have the cow, the steer. We wound up getting a miniature donkey that came with a companion goat because one of our kids really wanted this donkey, and we said, "Okay, sure, what the heck?" Yeah, and so they told us that she needed to have this goat with her, or else she would be too lonely. So we have this goat, just a fainting goat. We wound up with that. We got a bunch of chickens. Like we have 20 hens now and a rooster. And then we wound up getting a breeding pair of pigs. And then we got somehow our neighbor also brought us another goat. So now we've got the two goats. All
Wow.
the animals. Yeah. This is all like so fast for us. And we just keep looking around like, I can't believe we're doing this. But sure, what the heck? They're all eating grass. It's pretty cool. But all the animals have gotten out. One of our biggest things has been just trying to get all the fences in order. But fortunately, the house that we bought was built in like 1943. So there were a lot of outbuildings in varying states of decay. And, they're pretty functional. The fences are pretty functional. But, we're buying a lot of cattle panel and getting that hooked up to keep everything inside.
Sure. It with people just dumping animals on you, it almost sounds like a animal sanctuary more than an operational farm.
Right, right. I think they're just trying to test us and see
Like,
if we're up
hey,
for the challenge.
yeah, check out these newbies. Yeah,
Exactly. Oh, they're from
the new
Florida. Let's
neighbors.
see what they can do.
Right. That's funny. That's pretty good.
They're really
Um,
sweet though.
yeah, it is always interesting, like the new neighbors. Like you maybe this is the first house that we've owned, and so coming into this place, you're always you got kind of like rose colored glasses. Like this is gonna be great. You know, I'm gonna get along with all my neighbors, and I do. But you're also like, oh, up the road, like that's Rick. Like he's a nice guy, but he's really weird, or he's like, or his stories aren't exactly what he they claim to be. That kind of thing.
Right.
So yeah, you
But
gotta
we've been
figure
pretty
people out.
lucky. Yeah. We've been pretty lucky. Our neighbors are really nice and everything. And it's a small town, and we're kind of getting to the point now where we go into town to go to the hardware store and I'm recognizing people and saying hello and they recognize us, which is really nice.
It is,
I
yeah,
haven't had anything like that before.
yeah, yeah. It's always a game, like between my wife and I. Like, are you gonna run into somebody or am I?
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's a good
what's
game.
be- yeah, what's been the big yeah, all these things have happened getting started, but what's been the biggest challenge in starting up your farm that you faced so far?
Really, the biggest challenge was before we even got here. And that was kind of letting go of the idea that we were going to figure out the perfect method for everything. You kind of get on to get on YouTube or you get on Twitter or whatever, and everybody has very specific ways that they do things, and everybody thinks that that is the best way and the only way to get things done. If it's tilling or not tilling, or um, you know, perennials only, or no, have tons of annuals and things like that. And I feel like because of the extended time frame between when we decided we were going to go and when we actually got here, we had so much time to kind of let go of that idea of we're going to get this all nailed out and nailed down and figured out, and have an exact plan and have a diagram for my garden, and have everything plotted out on a specific calendar. Everything, we war gamed basically so much that by the time we were boots on the ground, we just realized none of this is going to work. Everything is going to have to be, um, you know, what is going on right now? What is the weather right now? What can we plant right now? What's in stock right now? I mean, there's so many supply chain issues and things like that sometimes, if we had really had a set plan that was so reliant on every piece of the puzzle fitting perfectly into place, we'd never get anything done. It's every day is what can we do today with what we have, or, the minimal to get to where we need to be. So that I feel has been the biggest challenge, is just letting go of that mindset and really realizing that this is a long haul. This is a long-term process. Our kids are going to be hopefully continuing this long after we're gone. And, we want this to be a generational home that is just going to be continuously under improvement.
I really like that answer. I've never gotten that one before. So that's really nice that you just, you have to be adaptable all the time. Hey, I was planning on doing this. Can't do it because blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. Let's either find a way to still figure out how to make it work, or figure out something else to do until blah, blah, blah gets resolved. So,
right. I mean, at least there's going to be some progress, something moving forward.
There's always something to do.
Exactly. There's always plenty to do.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said about, people say to do it like this or to do it like that for, their personal opinions and biases. I had bought 100 yards of wood chips last year, and I was going to lay down cardboard over the grass that I wanted. It's more like weeds that I wanted contained, and then wood chips on top. Well, the area that I was trying to cover was big. It was, like 30 or 40 by 80 or 100. It would have been a lot of cardboard. Oh, yeah. So I go to the grocery store, and I pick up one of those bales of cardboard. So they got that machine that binds it all together. Oh, and I'm like, hey, can I have this? I need I don't know, 3 of them, let's say. And they're like, yeah, that sounds good. So I made a couple trips, got 3 of them, and I broke open one and started laying them out. And it is, I'm starting to do it. This is not going to, this looks dumb. This is probably not going to work. Because they're crushed, and they're small boxes, and they're full of tape. And so I'm like, okay, they're small, they're crushed, they're full of tape. This just does not feel right. And so I'm laying them out, and I got a big section done, and then it started getting windy, and it was before the wood chips were supposed to get here in 2 days. And so I just go, this is not going to work. We're just going to have to skip the cardboard. And so I piled up the cardboard, and because I didn't want it to just like, like card, like when you burn like paper, it just like floats away.
Right.
Well, that's really bad, especially when you live in such a dry climate that like
Uh-huh.
a cigarette could just start a whole field on fire, right?
Absolutely.
So I made like this cage out of fencing and I put all the cardboard in there and then I set it on fire. Still dumb. Uh, that was a pretty dumb idea, but we didn't have the cardboard and I was able, the grocery store took back the other two bales, thankfully, but getting them back in the truck, that was a whole thing. That was a whole nother thing, that, it made for some entertaining videos on TikTok that people were not nice about whatsoever. But so, anyways, crushed cardboard from a grocery store does not work. Tried it, don't do it.
Okay, well,
But yeah,
that's good to know.
yeah,
That is good to know.
yeah. So,
So did you put down the wood chips?
yep, I still put down all the wood chips, and nothing's like some of the more aggressive weeds, like something really thorny is coming through in some spots, but I knew it was there. It was there when we laid it down. Oh, sorry, my computer screen went to sleep. That was distracting. Uh, but it doesn't look good because it's trying to get through like 4 or 6 inches of wood chips, and so
Oh,
it's
wow.
like it's really struggling. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah,
we did the cardboard stuff. Okay, so we had kind of a different reason with the cardboard, of course, because we had just moved here, so we had tons of moving boxes, and I really didn't
yeah,
feel like hauling them to the dump. So we would just, as we unpacked a box, we would break it open and go put it out in the garden. And my gosh, it takes so much of them. We thought we were going to be able to do the whole backyard. We really were not. It only did a little bit. And even now, we like because this farm is so old, this property is so old, there's just been this kind of accumulation of stuff around the fringes of the property line. And in one part of it, there's these old ground bales of hay that
mm,
have been there for years. I mean, if when we looked at the Google Maps and stuff, they've been there for at least 5 years, just rotting away. So we started hauling those hay bales into the yard to spread in between our rows to keep the weeds down, which of course it didn't work. But still, I get enough Amazon boxes and various other boxes on a daily and weekly basis that I figured we just put the hay down. And as I get another box, I pull the hay up, I put a box down, I cover it back up with hay, and we move on.
sure,
So eventually it will be covered. Eventually we'll have that nice weed-free garden.
right. I was expecting a little bit of a different outcome with the hay. I seeded the backyard with like a fescue and a clover. Like I'm not gonna mow it. Don't want to mow it. And so then I covered it with straw, and it's growing, and and I'm like, why? This was like months later. I'm like, why in the world do I have wheat growing in my yard?
Yeah.
It wasn't a lot, but it was some, and I was like, oh, the straw, duh.
Yeah. Well, that's what we did in our garlic beds, and we got wheat growing in there. And I was just outside yesterday looking around, and apparently I missed some of the wheat because it's got kernels and everything on it now. But it kind of makes me wonder, like, hey, maybe that would be a good way to just plant some wheat, just throw some straw down and see what happens.
Yeah, I did. I did take some of the wheat. I'm like, oh, we grew some wheat. How about that? And I put it in like a old, kind of fancy looking like liquor bottle, and like so it's like kind of like staggered. So now it's decorative wheat in a liquor bottle.
Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah.
Fancy store.
Hey, there you go. I'll start a recycling service out here and grow my own wheat to sell on Etsy and stuff. That's not a bad idea. Decorative decorative wheat. So in learning some new methods and whatnot for the new property, like what kind of like technological resources have you found useful?
Uh, One of my main things is the Todoist app.
The to-do list app. Okay.
Todoist, yeah. It's right there on my phone, and it's super easy to add something to my schedule because I am really bad about remembering to do things. Like, hey, I'm putting a copper fungicide on this tree today, and I need to repeat it in a week, and that's going to go in one ear and out the other. But I can use an app like that to jot that down. I can do that to remind myself when I'm supposed to put some beans in the ground. Um, Anything that I am looking at and I realize I don't have the time to do it right now and it needs to be done, I'm just popping that in there. So that's really helpful for me. And the other one is this, it's actually a website, I guess, but they have an app. It's called iNaturalist.
Yes.
And I love that. We walk around and we take pictures of every unfamiliar plant or insect that we see, upload it, figure out what it is, what's it used for, can it be useful? Is it something that I need to be worried about? Uh, Especially coming from Florida where I grew up and I was pretty familiar with the flora and the fauna down there. But here in Oklahoma, there are trees that I have no idea what they are, much less bugs and wildflowers and everything. So
Yeah.
just having that knowledge base to be able to see, hey, this is something good to have in a pasture. I don't want to get rid of that. Hey, that's a beneficial bug. Let's not kill that one. Oh, this one sucks. Let's get rid of that one. That's been really helpful. And it's fun for the kids. They all kind of run around and take pictures of stuff too. And we all are just trying to learn everything we can about the property that we're on.
That's pretty neat. Yeah, I use a similar app. iSeek or I don't remember. Who cares? But I flagged in the yard this purple flower, and I wanted to show my wife. I'm like, hey, check this thing out. I don't remember seeing this last year, or maybe I just forgot. I don't know. And so we scanned it, and she's like, that's actually pretty toxic to people and animals. So even like a little bit can mess you up.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. And then once I found it one place, I like found it everywhere. And so I don't know if that's something I should work on like eradicating or I don't know. Can you even? Who knows? I'll have to do some more research, I guess. Homeschooling. Can you talk about homeschooling a little bit?
Sure. What would you like to know?
So have you homeschooled your oldest since the beginning, or did they start in public school and then move to being homeschooled, or what was the deal there?
We have homeschooled from the start.
Because you feel like they can get a better education at home than they can in school, or
I feel like the benefits overall for homeschooling compared to public schooling, I feel like they can get a better education. I went to very academic high school in Florida, and one of the things that I really regret about my experience is that I felt like there was so much focus on that college application and getting to college. I didn't feel like I really had the time to enjoy learning along the way. It was very much cram, pass, forget, and that cycle over and over again.
sure.
And I really felt like with our own kids, I wanted them to, have a strong foundation in their basics, to be able to read very well, to write well, to have, your basic arithmetic and, up to algebra, so mastered, and then have time to read and talk about things and pursue their interests. I have one kid who loves art. I mean, he is a fantastic artist and he could spend all day drawing and be content. I have one kid who wants to be a, a not a, well, not specifically a marine biologist, but she wants to study seals and work with seals. That's her dream. That's what she's obsessed with. That's what she likes to do. Um, it's been fantastic to allow my kids to have the time in the day to explore their own interests, to be able to help around the house, around the farm and everything, still get their school done and still have the amount of leisure time that they have. It's an incredible gift for them. I wish I'd had that same experience when I was a kid.
I agree. Yeah, I never liked school, hated school. And it wasn't until I was an adult that I actually realized I love to learn. And that's kind of unfortunate that I didn't feel that way during pretty much my entire time in school. Just like, why am I here? I hate being here. Why do I have to learn this? This is dumb. Um, but that there are certain it was the subjects in which we were forced to learn, and also the methods in which you were forced to learn them. So
Right. Yeah. I mean, and it's sad because I was just talking to my kids about this today, that, being able to always be curious and to retain that love of finding out something new and, mastering a skill, finding out about something that you never even knew existed, and then learning how to do that, doing it well. You don't get that type of satisfaction from writing a book report or a 5-paragraph essay that was the majority of schooling that you're going through. I don't really need to memorize the Krebs cycle in biology, but man, it would have been fantastic to really go out into the area around that I grew up in and really learn about, these are the plants that grow here. Here's the animals that grow here. To see all of that, how that works in real life, as opposed to just studying for a test.
right. Yeah, it can be very individually tailored. So do you use like what I guess what's your curriculum that you use for your kids, or is each one different? Do they each learn a different way and you've had to modify it all the time?
Everybody is different. And when they're younger, we really are just focused on the basics. So learning to read well, um, handwriting, and math facts, making sure that they know addition, subtraction, all their times tables and things like that very well. Because I feel like if you don't have that base, then the things that are going to come later will not make sense. If you can read well, you can teach yourself just about anything. And
Right.
you can have instantaneous recall of your times tables, or your addition facts, that when you're working with more complicated, math later on, as opposed to just arithmetic, it's going to be easier for you because you're not struggling through every step of that problem. You're using that arithmetic as a tool and then solving a problem in geometry or algebra or whatever it is that you're doing. So those basics get worked really hard when they're young. And then as they get older, I've given them the opportunity to kind of choose how they would like to go, what math program they would like to follow. I have one kid who really enjoys a more of a narrative math, as Life of Fred, which is a kind of funny, whimsical math book. I have one kid that just wants just give it to me. What do I need to learn? I don't
Sure.
really like math, but I just want to do it. We do reading lists, but they have their input into that. And then a lot of our things that would have been more subjects in school, history, science, and things like that, we do those just together, all of us. I have a book that we're reading aloud for each subject that we're in. We sit in the mornings, we read together, we talk about that. If the mood strikes, we might look at the video that has more information about it. uh, do an experiment, whatever. If they're interested in it, then we keep going. And if they're not, okay, that's fine. You don't have to be interested in everything. But now at
Sure.
least you're familiar with this topic. If it comes up, you can at least have a passing familiarity with it. Um, just like every other person in the world, as adults, we're not expected to know everything or be interested in everything. It's okay. That's fine. As long as you got those basics down.
You, I like your approach. It seems very simplified. Like everyone kind of seems to want to make homeschooling pretty complicated. Like, oh, I'm going to be more this or more that, and I can understand. We're gonna start homeschooling my son this year, and my wife wants to like follow a curriculum. I mean, he's gonna turn 3 this month, so like he's not going to preschool. He's gonna be learning here at home. And so, you know, you kind of want some guidelines at least, which makes sense instead of just like, I mean, yes, there's like the unschooling method. We're just like, yeah, just just learn, we'll teach him whatever, pick it up along the way. He'll figure it out. Yeah, there is that method, but we want to make sure that um, he's not falling behind in certain things because that's the opposite of what we want. Like a friend of mine, his his son is about 6 months behind, like 6 months younger than my son, and he was telling me how good he is on his balance bike, and I was kind of like, oh, man, I got to get on uh, practicing with my son on his balance bike. Like he has one, we just haven't been like doing it every day, and so after like that was kind of like a kick in the butt for me. Like like we're going outside, we're riding your bike, and then so like he kind of want to ride it and then not, and so I got my bike out of the shed and I'd ride around with him a little bit. And last week he just like took off like on getting it because he would like those little balance bikes. Like he would just kind of walk down the driveway, and then I'm like, you got to pick up your feet. Like like watch. I'm riding down the driveway. I'm not like my feet aren't even touching the ground, and so it took like probably a week or two of that, and then he just got it, and it was so awesome. I loved it.
That's fantastic. But I mean, that's the way it is, I think, for so much with kids. And hey, I understand where your wife is coming from. When my oldest was 2, I had his schooling planned out up until college. I had it all written down. I knew exactly what we were going to do, what he was going to be studying in every grade. And then, of course, like everything else, you hit reality and it's not quite that. Um, we have a lot of kids. We have 5 kids, and
Yeah,
one of our kids has severe special needs. And as we have gone through life, we have to adjust and adapt. And I feel like so much of our life has been simplifying and paring things down and really trying to focus on what's the most important, what absolutely has to be done, what would be really cool if we could do it, and what is just the absolute kind of fluff that's just the sprinkling on
sure.
top.
Are you comfortable talking about your special needs child at all, or is that something that you'd like to keep private?
I'll keep it private. I mean,
That's fine.
yeah, he's
It's actually a lot more common than I realized. That I'm like, I know this person that has a special needs child. I know this person that has a special needs child. So like I think it's uh, not talked about enough.
I mean, it's not. I mean, I want to respect his
Sure.
privacy and everything. I would just suffice to say he's at a level where he's not going to be able to live independently ever.
Gotcha.
And that definitely factored in too in our decision to move out here because again, uh, long term, my husband and I are not going to be around forever. His siblings will need to help take over his care at some point, and we want to make sure that we're leaving them in a situation where that's going to be as easy as possible for them.
Sure. I understand. Yeah, my have a cousin that's like that. He will not be able to live like on his own. Like he can do things well, but he's kind of like stunted at like for like a, let's say like maybe like a 10-year-old's like understanding of things. So yeah, I can see that. I can understand that. Kind of wrapping up here. What would you tell people that want to get started?
I would say just go ahead and get started. There's never going to be a perfect time or place or anything. There's never going to be the right amount of money. There's never going to be the exact situation to, have this fantasy life. It's going to take a lot of work, and it's not going to go according to plan, and it's going to be fantastic nonetheless. So just get started and be willing
I
to do it.
I agree. That's perfect. But hey, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about or touch on that we didn't get to?
I feel like we've covered quite a bit.
We did.
I mean, I appreciate you asking me onto your
Yeah.
show.
I appreciate your time. Yeah, I appreciate your time and you being here and working with me on my power outage and all the other weird little quirks and things that popped up. So you've been great. I've really, really appreciated this conversation, getting to know like who is this random Twitter account that
Yes.
I don't know, people I'm really liking these, like interviewing like these smaller accounts instead of like these big name people that, oh, look at, like, I've got these great things to say. And like, no, I'm gonna go the other way. I used to try to get like, oh wow, this person, they're popular. I'd like to get a one-on-one, and like they're less interesting than the everyday people. So I like these little interviews. So appreciate it.
See, and now I'm not a bot. So
Bot check. Yeah, instead of get a blue check, get a, I don't know, whatever color, all the colors in the logo, get that rainbow checked or something. Maybe not that, but something different. But hey, yeah, thanks again, and I'm looking forward to following your journey in your new place.
all right, I appreciate it, man.
All right, thanks, Michelle.
You're welcome.
Bye. I am Matt DeRozier of FarmHopLife. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and visit farmhoplife.com.
Inside of the city, the people are crazy, out of their minds, they ain't got a clue. We gone away, headed west for Montana, left family and friends, all I got now is you. We both got new jobs, a house and a homestead, thinking this was the life, all that there'd be. After our firstborn, you had to stay home. That's when the work got in the way for me. Well, I started FarmHopLife. We'll come to your farm to help and to wander. Me and the family, a truck and an RV. Send us a message and